Peace, what's up everybody? It's your boy Furious Styles once again, and we're going to have a discussion about two people who I'll call King Control and Super Petty. For those of you who don't know, King Control is 50 Cent and Super Petty is Charlemagne the God. While this isn't necessarily me taking shots at both of these individuals, I just wanted to point out some tactics, I would say, that both of these men use based on their platforms and what they can do. Alright, let's start off with King Troll 50 Cent. Let me first start off by saying unabashedly that I have always liked 50 Cent's music, his movies, and his TV show Power, first of all. So this isn't just some random thoughts coming from a certified hater, but just some stuff that I noticed. And just want to put it out there as a qualifier, just to let people know, hey, I'm not going to sit up here and talk about the man and don't front act like I don't like his music, movies, or TV shows. So with that being said, let's get into it. Starting off, I think 50 Cent is funny. I think he's talented. However, I think that, as with everything that happens to all people, people's tastes and people's sentiment about certain things change also. And I think that's what happened with 50 Cent music. I don't think he just all of a sudden got whack overnight or anything. I don't even think he turned whack. I just think the attention span of people in so-called hip-hop, their taste just changed. And this is evident from what they listened to and from the people who thought they were real, and just the evolution of music over time. So I think 50, recognizing this, decided, let me go and do the whole thing about movies. Let me go the whole route of creating a platform where I can talk and address stuff on social media, which was fine. I think that was a smart thing to do. But here's the thing that I noticed. Instead of being an influencer, 50 Cent kind of became a social media someone who commentates or provides some type of view based on what's going on in the social media or in the public / celebrity atmosphere. Only problem with that is, this dude got $100 million in the bank. You should be doing what you've always done, which is make movies and make content for people to see. But when I say content, I mean meaningful content. Meaning this whole thing about movies and TV shows, that's your lane. That's what you do that separates you from other rappers or celebrities, is that you recognize that early, and you started to make a lane and you filled it. But with all things, some things went down the pipe, a few things happened, and we can go into those. Number one, his beef with Rick Ross. I'm not the tape. sides or say whether or not he was wrong or right for taking shots at Rick Ross. He may have some legitimate reasons for feeling the way he does based on the image that Rick Ross presents. But also at the same time, putting a sex tape out involving his baby moms, that wasn't cool. And not only was it not cool, I think that you got terrible advice from people. With regards to, or from a lawyer, you got terrible advice from a lawyer, with regards to how you should address this issue, because you didn't have her written permission or consent to release that footage. By you releasing that footage, you open yourself up to a lawsuit, which you subsequently lost. And to be honest, you lost it on somebody who probably wasn't even worth your time to even do it. And here's another thing about 50 Cent. Let me just say this. How he treated the members of his own clique. I never thought that that was cool. From saying how, this person isn't this or this person isn't this. Talking about Lloyd Banks and Tony Yayo, Game, and even Olivia, to taping his conversations with Young Buck when Young Buck was in a position of distress. And then releasing those taped conversations. Regardless of how you feel with regards to 50 Cent, that shit was dead wrong. I don't care who you are, how you gonna take my conversation with you, something I'm speaking to you in a personal manner, then you gonna put it on the internet, and it's like, really? And then the most fucked up part about it is, after that, after all of that shit goes down, Young Buck continues to fuck with him. I don't know if Young Buck had to do that out of necessity, or maybe his pockets was tight. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But where's your fucking self-respect and pride? You gonna fuck with somebody how you gonna have anything to do with somebody who fucking taped your conversations and then put them on the internet? Yeah, it's one thing for 50 to do it, but it's another thing for you to fuck with a nigga after he does it. Do you have any fucking principles that you stand on whatsoever? Give a shit how much money is involved in it. But that's neither here nor there. I call 50 the king of trolls is because he basically started this trolling shit. Not that he ain't basically started, but he was the most well-known or most famous, I think, person to do it at a particular time, way before Donald Trump did it. Trump is late to the game. That's why he ain't the king of it. 50 is. So that's my reasons for calling 50 Cent King Troll. On to Super Petty, aka Charlemagne the God. Just like with 50 Cent, I'm not going to sit up here and act like I don't listen to Charlemagne's Breakfast Club podcast or his Brilliant Idiot podcast. I can take the Breakfast Club podcast more than I can take the brilliant idiot shit, because sometimes Andrew Schultz, for lack of a better word, is, just fucking idiot. Just gonna put it out there and say it. But with that being said, I'll tell you why I call Charlemagne super petty. Charlemagne tries to build this reputation, or try and have this narrative of him that he's going to ask whoever, whatever, whenever he wants. And while that's a good attitude to have, especially in journalism, it doesn't always come across as if he's actually adhering to that narrative when it comes to certain interviews. Now, while I'm not going to sit up here and go through every interview and give you specific examples of it, it just seems like at times, there's people that he will say certain shit to, and then there's certain people he won't say shit to. And I think, for the most part, that shit comes off as petty to me. Got to keep it the same, across the board with everybody. Don't say some foul shit about one person, but then don't say shit about the next guest that come up there, or somebody that you like on the show. With that being said, I think people sometimes forget when they go up to his show, you're in his fucking lane. This nigga's job is to sit on the radio for 4 hours and talk shit and talk greasy to no matter who comes up there. So if you go up there in his domain, you have to be prepared to deal with it. And there's times when, sometimes he got to get called out on this shit. For example, when Dame Dash went up there to his show, he kept asking Dame kind of, little slick shit, and Dame got tired of it, and he just said, you think I don't know what you're doing? Why you gonna have on a Rock Nation hat and a shirt with Jay-Z face on it, and you think I don't know what the fuck you trying to do? And I think what Damon Dash was trying to explain to Charlemagne is, it don't have anything to do with the shirt or the hat. But don't sit up here and try and play me like I'm stupid. Like I'm some sucker, You put that shit on to elicit a response from me. And Charlemagne can sit up here and say, no, that wasn't the case. I just put on the shirt, this, and the third. But you just happen to put on a shirt with Jay-Z face on it the day Damon Dash comes up to your show, and have on a Rock Nation hat. Like, get the fuck out of here. Another example, just going back to the whole Jesus and Mero and DJ Envy thing. Charlemagne could have deaded that shit immediately, but he wanted to, let that shit ride, and whatever happened. If Charlemagne knew that DJ Envy was tight about that situation, he should have addressed it off air or took care of it before that shit went on air. Now, while that shit could all just be a work, and for those who don't know, a work is a term that comes from wrestling, and it just means a fake storyline. Meaning it's something that's supposed to come off as real, but it's really been planned and talked about, and it's fake. So when I say a work, you'll hear me refer to that from time to time, a work. That's what I'm talking about. So the whole shit with DJ Envy and Jesus and Mero, could have been a work, but I doubt it, just because I think envy is just that fucking sensitive. But with Jesus and Mero being Charlemagne's homeboys, you know, he could have deaded that situation prior to it getting to that point. But he didn't. Just like, you know, the time when Baby went up there, and I think Charlemagne sometimes forget who he is, where he is, or what's his position within hip-hop. Yeah, you can talk greasy to Baby, but, you know, you got to be prepared to deal with the consequences of that shit too. Now, I'm not here to say what Baby will or won't do and all of this kind of shit, but, you know, dude is telling you put some respect on his name. He ain't just saying that just to be saying that. And if you think, you know, Baby is just talk, then, you know, we'll see. So with that being said, and, you know, a lot of the greasy shit he says, and, you know, it's funny how whenever Sierra comes up to the Breakfast Club, Charlemagne is never there to address some of the shit he said about her, you know. And you can't have it both ways. You can't talk greasy about somebody, but the 3 times she's been on the show, 2 or 3 times she's been on the show, it just happens to work out as a matter of circumstances that you're not there to do that show or have her confront you about the shit that you say about her. And once again, this isn't me taking up for Sierra or, you know, I give a shit less. But it's just, you know, this seemingly endless run of petty shit that people be on. And, you know, sometimes you got to get called on that shit. And I noticed that a lot in radio and the shit that people say on these platforms. You know, eventually you're going to say some shit and somebody is going to check you on it. It may not be today or tomorrow, but eventually you will get checked for some of the greasy shit that you say. And, you know, it ain't about being tough or threatening people or whatever, but, you know, especially as men, when you talk reckless and talk that rah-rah shit around certain people, you know, you hear this term, test my gangster, somebody gonna test you. So when I hear this shit that these people say, and when I hear them talking greasy about certain people, I'm just like, will you talk that greasy in that person's face? Will the shit that you know, where you say when they're not there in front of you, where you still had that heat when the person comes up to your show, up to your platform, or whatever the case may be? I don't know. But, you know, it's a lot of petty and effeminate behavior. And, you know, these men have to, you know, check themselves. It's one thing to critique an album, to critique a movie, or whatever else, but you can't create or call into question another man or woman's character without truly knowing that person. Hell, you can't even believe, what's the saying goes, don't believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. I just notice people have an awful lot to say about people, and I'm like, how do you even know that shit is true or has any type of validity in fact when you don't even know that person, or you haven't spoken to them or had 2 words with them. So that's that. So that's my take on King Petty and Super Troll. Also 50 Cent and Charlemagne the God. Once again, leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like what I'm talking about. Also, suggest some topics for me to discuss in the future. That's it. I'm out. Peace.